Hello. Hey, Shannon Cass, how you doing? Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here today. My name is Jabari Whitehead. I'm the parent, father, educator that's been promoted to today, and so I'm here to talk to you about managing fears and returning to school for this upcoming school year. It's a conversation long overdue, so I want to make sure we had this conversation. And it's wanted to take time to begin really to reflect on some of the fears and some of the things that we all are feeling. I know right away, I immediately think about the, Rob Bass song of, you know, joy and pain. So I think if that might describe the roller coaster of the emotions that we're all feeling at this time. But again, we're all human. We have these emotions and we ride through it and we try to figure out what we can do best. So we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. So we're trying to figure it out. So I'll just stay with me here. I think the major piece I reflected on in these times is how can we, as the adults, model what is best for our children in these times. Again, I'm a principal, so I hear from families. I'm a father, so I have two children and a wife, and we're trying to navigate our own children's feelings when we're heading to the school year. But what I've learned to date is really how many opportunities that we have in these times. You may be in a school where the plan is that you're going back to a hybrid model where your kids are in school, halftime of 2 days a week, 2 days in, 2 days out. You may have a situation where you're virtually online completely, and that's possible. You may be in a situation where, whether it's the variation of high school or middle school, you can have varying days. You also can be very frustrated because you're struggling with childcare or how you're going to navigate this year. You also could be frustrated or a little concerned about what your children are going to return to. But one thing we know for sure and can be certain is that we only have control over what is before us. Once we're in house, if your children are at school, the school administrators, the teachers, the students, all the adults, the administration, the bus drivers, the cafeteria supervisors, the cafeteria employees, custodians, the secretary, we all have control over the daily operations in that time when we're together. So that's what we really have opportunity to reflect on. When it's at home, it's the technology that we're working on. We're trying to get hold of, how will our students navigate, whether it's through the iPad, whether they're using Canvas, whether your district is using a Google chat forum, whether you're using those pieces. It's really about you're navigating what's going to work best in your household, how to keep your family, how to keep the children, give them a sense of normalcy in these times. So all of us are really navigating those pieces. So again, I'm here today to help us see, what our opportunities lie and what are things that we have within our control. We have a chance to reset and control the narrative going into the school year and set the tone for our families and communities. So from a leadership standpoint, it's really about maintaining the calm, focus on what we control. And usually what we can control right away in these times is or at least 5 different factors. So of these 5 factors, we can really be self-assess where we stand for our children, for ourselves, if we're going to lead. In these times, you may have been dealing with sleep. So that's one of the 5 factors you have control over. So the amount of sleep you have that you have control over, the quality of sleep that you have. The sleep deprivation can play a very significant part on how you think during the day, how you engage other people, whether you're cranky or not, whether you're ready to engage other human beings, and even have a tolerance or acceptance of others. Our nutrition, how we fuel our body, these particular habits, what we put in our system. So, for example, if you are eating foods that are highly processed or leave you feeling bloated or leave you feeling, with a higher core temperature, some people call it the meat sweats. If you're eating in that manner, how is it going to affect you? Like your gut health, your digestive system, how that's going to affect you long before you ever arrive at work. The caffeine, the sugar, all those pieces. So being able to take care of yourselves, and even as a parent and a community member, how does that play a part? Then you have from the sleep, talk about nutrition, and then movement or exercise routines. How do we get a chance to move? Not everybody belongs to a gym. Not everybody's into CrossFit. Not everybody has those things. But can you get out for a walk? Can you model the healthy habits that, again, our children really need to take part in as far as movement goes? So again, we have control over these pieces, which puts us in a better place to be able to be crisis leaders to engage our community. Relationships matter. We have control over how we establish relationships and relationships that we have in front of us. For example, right now there's a lot of angst and anxiety. There's emails, people are typing angry emails and texts and sending out meme after meme about 2020, just killing 2020 and not seeing opportunities that are there. However, what are the relationships? So if you send an email or a nasty gram or have a nasty phone call or exchange, what is the energy that was left behind in that relationship? So if you sent a 5-paragraph message to the school out of frustration, did it achieve the ultimate objective of peace for yourself, or being able to establish your concerns and setting up a link of communication back and forth? Is it when you're outside and in public with your friends, you're at the beach, like I am right now, or at the park, or on the sidelines at a soccer game or lacrosse game or wherever you might be, and you're engaging in those exchanges? Again, because relationships matter. So what is the energy? What relationships are going to be left behind after all these pieces or this episode in our life plays out? And then the big, huge part, which may mean more than anything, no matter what, is mindset. Mindset can control a lot. So give you an idea of my mindset, being brutally optimistic. Again, I'm human. No matter what my role is as an educator or I'm a human being, where my feelings or emotions go up and down based off of what's currently happening in our life. But then you give that time you give the time for to let those emotions pass and don't judge the moment. We often can get caught up or trapped in the idea that, woe is me. Why is this happening to me? This shouldn't happen to me. Nobody should go through this. But just like anything else, that when good things happen, we often say, if not me, then who? Well, in these times of this episode in our life, we're also considering, if not me, then who? If why? How could I assume that this is not going to happen? That has happened to someone else besides myself. I mean, I might be stronger to take it. You might be strong enough to handle what's there. But when we consider that we are global citizens, that there are things that are happening in the world, like in Syria, for example, things happen in the world where a child is trying to go to school, get an education, go to doctors. There's a documentary called The Cave, where you have a doctor who's trying to visit homes and take care of people while their communities are in a civil war or conflict, where there's bombs being dropped, or when there is bullets riddled through their home and they have to sleep on the floor. Again, those things were existing before this time period that we're in, and those things unfortunately continue. So we take a look at our situation; it could always be worse. And so it's really about mindset, about reframing the situation, and then it's the whole idea about, in these times, even when there's good times, there's always going to be change. Adopting a mindset of impermanence. Deepak Chopra talks about that a lot, where fortune is very fickle. You can have good things happen. You can, great things going on, negative things. So all these things can change. There's no binary moment where it's always going to be the same. Or we don't change. I mean, we change constantly. We're constantly evolving as organic creatures. We're constantly transforming into hopefully becoming something greater. So we have to expect change, and if we adopt the mindset of impermanence and understanding that fortune is fickle, then it puts us in a better place to be prepared for moments much like this. So again, these are things that we want to continue to model and realize what is not in our control. So we focus on what's in our control, then that will help us with our mindset moving forward. Uh, Other pieces, we take a look at this. Facebook group. I saw that Facebook group post are giving me anxiety. It's too much. Shut it off. One of the greatest things I heard from Jay Shetty talked about the idea that some of the best practices when you wake up in the morning. One of the things is don't look at social media when you prepare for your day. Avoid email when you first wake up because again, email you're adopting someone else's agenda when you first arrive. What are those morning rituals or routines that become like what Glennon Doyle refers to as your touch tree? We're able to go back and ground yourself. Maybe a practice of gratitude journaling in the morning to set and reach so you can really realize that there is so much good in this world when you look around you. So these are pieces. But I want to explain to you in terms of mindset what's really happening at your school. So when you're at school, yes, there's going to be masks. It's not going to be the same. This is not Pollyanna. There's going to be masks that your child might have to wear, that the staff has to wear. And I see a lot of impact of statements and concerns about that. And me, because I believe in smiling and connecting with people, I might feel the same way. However, what we have control over is that we want to make sure people are safe. We want to make sure that we're taking all precautions and mitigating the factors as much as we possibly can. So we wear the mask, but that doesn't stop from the enthusiasm that we have control over as school leaders, that we have control over as the adults that are leading our children, again, as crisis leaders. And then the fact that we are taking action in the class, having a smaller class size. If your child's in school and they're on a cohort or split schedule, then they're receiving and have an even greater intimate relationship with the teacher that they may never have before. The fact that they have this caring adult that they're going to have more exchanges with and more chance for student voice that they didn't have before. So there's some gifts that are there. You can always look for those pieces. And again, we can't fault anyone for their decisions, whether they want the child home full time, if there's an online option, if there's someone who is struggling to engage to be out in public. So there's so many pieces that come into play that we can determine how this experience how people are going through this experience. It's not about shame. It's about feeling those emotions, figuring out what you can control, reframing it, and then be able to move forward and taking those action steps because action kills anxiety. What are some action steps that we can take as community members, as family members, as parents? So, say for example, when your child is away from school, when they're at home, how can you, as community members, stabilize, organize, and mobilize to make sure that we have the best scenario to support our community, to be supportive of our school? One idea is that many of the home and school associations or PTCs have had the opportunity to reframe or reconfigure how they operate and establish a new purpose during these times. Whether it's setting up in the community a homework center virtually, or making community members available to provide support during the day, making sure that they're able to communicate during the day. I think all those pieces are helpful if you're signing up or create an outlet for people to share their concerns. Can you hear me now? Yes, I can.
Okay.
I can hear you now.
Great.
All right. So Shannon, I can hear Shannon now. Uh,
Okay.
did,
Cool. I'm just gonna take myself out of this because I think I'm being more of a distraction, and then you can keep running with it, Jabari.
okay.
Okay.
All right. All right. So I think we're at the point where we're really talking about ways the community can be involved, help one another, and take action in these times. So a part of it in these times, it's being able to. I liken it to a watchdog dad. Watchdog Dad was a program that we had when I was a principal in Upper Marion. And what those fathers of people who played those roles were able to do, they were able to sign up one day per for the year to be available for the entire day. So they gave up their time to be available for sight works, flashcards. They had the clearances that came to the school. Well, we can't come to the school now. However, what we can do at this point as a community, you have opportunity to again set up a network to where maybe someone sacrifices a day over the course of a calendar year, over the course of a calendar school year, and makes himself available to answer questions in support of another child in the neighborhood, whether it's for math or science or social studies, or to even be able to check in on those neighbors as well during the day. So that's another way to mobilize to help each other find resources. For example, at home in support of your child, if you want your child to have more support for their learning beyond the school day or as a supplement, there's online resources. Whether you use Khan Academy, which we use for our children as opportunity, whether you utilize YouTube. On YouTube, there's many read alouds. If you look for a nonfiction text or type in a book that's being read, you can use YouTube for read alouds. There is free resources such as Math Munch that gives exploration for math. There's Mystery Science that has some resources that are still free, and you can have more memberships. There's Nat Geo Kids. There is a read theory, which is targeted at standards and at a grade level. So there's so many pieces that um, you can utilize to help your child learn and grow. One of it, especially on the younger, uh, uh, one of the things
Oh, I
on
keep going, Jabari.
what was that?
I was going to keep going on your point, and then I want to ask this question about where this leads to.
Okay, I think one of the pieces that you're actually able to to utilize. I believe I was addressing the point of resource. So read theory, I talked about the standards and being able to utilize that. But if a child is grade K to 2, for our family, we used to utilize Starfall for kids. Starfall worked out really well. Our students, it's aligned to different grade levels. The social studies, science, that's math or language arts. And our children would get on there. They'll play Skater Dog. I know was a big time math game that they really enjoy it. But those are other opportunities as well. And then let's not take for granted the current events that we're in. If we're facing COVID-19, we're facing this particular economic crisis at this time. There's math to be learned. There's science to be learned. There is the idea of social justice that kids and families can engage in. So there's no shortage of learning, and there's no shortage of growth opportunities at this time. And again, it's whether we choose. You have that point between stimulus and response, like Viktor Frankl speaks about, where you have opportunity to choose how you're going to respond, regardless of the stimulus. So we choose whether we want to move forward and grow and find resources to grow, or we can end up fighting against change, which is inevitable. Shannon? So I know we have a question here. What words, phrases can we use to alleviate worries in our high school students when they voice their concerns but not minimize situation? Okay, so you want to stick to facts. I talked about it's okay, it's not okay, but it's going to be okay. So when you talk to high school students, and I worked at a high school level, and I recognize that name. We work with high school students. They thrive on being respected, that they're not being treated or belittled or pacified. So if there's opportunity to talk to them, if they voice concerns or what their real fears are, but then have opportunity to talk to them to see if those fears are real. Are they really happening? Is this something that is feasible that's in their mind? Because sometimes, or as we dream things to be or perceive them to be, is actually worse than what the reality is. So I think that there's no magic words that are going to alleviate. I think it's allowing them to feel the emotion, allowing them to identify and label, allowing them to now let's think of a solution to these particular problems, and as adults being able to have them and guide them to solutions will play a big part.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I also think we can be mindful about our language. So, for example, saying something like safe at home, or I heard you say healthy at home versus lockdown. I think sometimes the language that we use can make all the difference.
Yeah, that was something that was pushed for. My school counselor was doing a great job in communicating us, that we talked a lot about how children, when we speak of safety, they equate safety the opposite being danger. So we're really encouraging at home and within our own household the power of our language of choosing healthy versus safe or unsafe. Because if you're establishing healthy habits, if you're taking a look at the physical distance, it's about being healthy, maintain a healthy environment. If you're in a school environment, it's about going through those mitigating factors. If you're at home, creating a safe, nurturing, healthy environment at home as well. Because even at home, as students are online at home, if they're sensing the parents' frustration, and I don't know if I mentioned mirror neurons and the impact that can have. And we talk about mirror neurons. When you have a facial expression, I often played around with this a lot. So if you have a particular body language or facial expression or a tone that you're carrying, if you try this with your children at home, just the facial expression alone, your child can mirror your facial expression. And usually there's emotions attached to a facial expression. If it's tone of voice, if it's and this is a great graphic. So if it's tone of voice, if it's body language, I've coached sports, and I've walked out to a practice field, and by just simply changing the expression on my face, the whole team, they want to know, what is that person thinking? If I'm walking through a hallway as a principal, if I walk into a classroom or engage the teachers, body language and mirror neuron, even through speech or tone, plays a large part. But even on the morning announcements, it can carry the tone of the day. So those play a large, especially as parents, because our children never want to disappoint. We want to maintain and build that relationship and be cognizant of the modeling that we're setting. I think one of the things in this manner as adults is we have opportunity to teach our children, and ironically, it's somewhat of a safe time because you're actually home with you more than they ever were. We have opportunity to teach them how to handle setbacks or disappointments, but usually they handle it according to how we handle it. So with the mirror neurons, if we constantly are having a frustrating tone, and the students or children are picking that up, or they even with if teachers, if we're at school and professionals are show or demonstrate frustration amongst each other, children can pick these things up. So again, you see a graph about mirror neurons, and again, you see it to experiences pain and empathy and the impact that it has when we sharing empathic feelings, when we're expressing empathy or seeing a bigger picture more than ourselves. Can we go back to the idea of Syria, or you go back to while we're dealing with COVID and wearing masks, while we're still in this environment where there are places in West Philadelphia that would be defined as a food desert. There's still places where I have colleagues who are principals in other areas, and when we talk about our concerns, their concerns, and this is about comparing suffering, but the concerns that they have may be, well, my kids might not be face to face with their teachers, but their concerns might be, well, my situation with a child not being in school is that it's life or death. That they're more prone to be subjected to gun violence or those things. So again, it's not okay, but it's going to be okay. And again, my teachers out there, we're feeling it. Our teachers are struggling. Again, teachers have they have their own children, they have their own families, and I know there's public members who some people will get to the point where we don't care. However, let's always want to make sure we keep in mind about how important our relationships are. But thinking back to, because even lead and engage with our teachers, we're still this reality that we can only control what we can. And we're just being a bridge and being a support for one another and making sure that we're all successful and provide the most nurture environment just for everyone. So you see the graphic of no control, influence, and control. We have control over what's in front of us, what we can legitimately change directly, and then we see we don't have control unless we have a direct influence. There's very few things, and what's helpful too is that if you ever come across a situation and you're able to write down what is under your control versus what is not, that can go a long way too, because it's about self-awareness. And we also, as far as self-awareness, think about our trigger points. Think about our trigger points as an adult when we're self-aware for what gets us upset. Why do we continue to run into this same situation over and over again? In these times, most of us didn't only get frustrated with these times. We may have the same pattern of behavior before when we arrived to these times, episode with COVID-19 or what's going on in our country. But as you come back to this particular school year, I think it's about focusing on what we can control, modeling what we want our children to see, modeling what we want our community members to see, and that developing empathy and that practice of gratitude, because we're not going to be alone. We're going to have people that we can rely on and support, and if not, maybe we could be there and be in support for others beyond ourselves.
All right, Jabari, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get this image off the screen, and I am unable to. So I'm just going to put this next question up.
Sure.
I keep getting knocked out of the broadcast because, again, I'm on my cellular network. So bear with me. Yeah. Oh my heaven.
Just for those who don't, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, please. I'm the one that needs to apologize. And here's another question.
What techniques can I use at my desk to remain calm and focused other than breathing exercises when students are not in front of me? Other than breathing exercises, what techniques can I use at my desk to remain calm and focused other than breathing exercises when students are not in front of me? That is a great question. So sometimes being able to breathing is one thing, but also being able to shift or change environments. I think that is another opportunity. I know there's a push in high school is a little bit different, but there is something to be said about teaching outside, being able to meet in a different location that's a novel location, because being outside and fresh air or teaching in a different location that is in a safe physical location. A healthy physical location definitely can make a difference. It's amazing what happens. We just change the atmosphere, change the environment. If you could step out and be elsewhere, and a lot of times getting outside your comfort zone could play a large part. And I know breathing was not. You hear about breathing, but breathing does play a very large part, because if you have think about two pieces. If you're a if you're a mouth breather, that is sympathetic breathing. So that goes right to your fight or flight. And then parasympathetic breathing is when you're breathing through your nose. So that allows you to have some time to be and respond. Without panic, without fear setting in. So if you practice both kinds, it really comes down making sure that your exhale is longer than your inhale, and belly breathing. That can make a significant change. Again, but before you get to that point, I want you to think about what your morning ritual is before you arrive to school. What is your morning? Sometimes, some people who know me out there, I have a habit of waking up at 4 a.m. I have a couple of siblings that, my brother and sister, we're both the same mindset when it comes to that. But the reason you do that so early, if you can, is that that's the only time you really have to yourself. And if you're able to take advantage of that time and give that time to yourself to reset your intentions for the day, then that could go a long way, long before you arrive to that school parking lot, long before you walk into the building, long before you see that first email or sit in that first meeting, long before the student shows up who might be frustrated because they lived the day already before they even arrived at school. When we talk about our trauma informed teaching, our brain based learning, because we're all getting ready to walk into a time of trauma informed teaching that we really need to be made aware of, not just for our students but for the families that we're engaging with in these times. But I wholeheartedly believe in creating a ritual, a practice before your day starts, and being able to be consistent in that and carrying it forward. Because again, you're self-aware and you know what your triggers are, and then being aware of the kind of individuals you're spending around the time, your relationships, your circle, and the kind of energy those individuals are bringing as well, and the energy you're leaving.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that, Jabari. Such great words of wisdom. Another thought is around mindfulness and be here now. To, as you're sitting at your desk or as you're going throughout your day, to just remember to be in the present moment, which is very challenging right now. And a way to do that is to pay attention to your five senses and recognize what's in front of you. Maybe even have a picture of something that makes you happy, or a song that you can listen to, or a great quote, or something that can help you to remember the kind of person that you want to be. Because really one of the main reasons why we wanted to have this session today is so that we as the adults, as an administrator, an educator, parent, counselor, and everywhere in between, that we are finding ways to be a positive role model.
Yes. Yeah, so Shannon, those are all great. I think the one thing teachers have, and that we have, and families have, anywhere in your life where you've gotten some kind of positive feedback. For teachers, we often recommend that if you have a positive note from a parent, a positive note from a student, a memory, or a positive image from from a loved one or significant other, somewhere that allows you to have that what was referred to as like a to-be list. Because if you are, if you reset your day to live in a sense of gratitude, to be gracious, to be empathetic, and to listen, then those three things allow you to set your compass for your day. But again, if you have those moments to be able to touch back on and be able to see and take a look at the, that you do hold meaning, that you do hold a special place in this world because of how unique you are. Or the fact is, even at home, as if or in your role, in your job or your careers, that what your bigger purpose is. Then again, that's that's one of those touch trees you're able to go back to and stay grounded in. What other questions does anyone have? I know I've been rambling on and had a lot to talk about, but what other questions might there be as you're facing this year?
I am trying to get this question off the screen, and I'm sorry, it's just not
That's okay.
cooperating. Um, one of the comments that Mike made was about how actions kill anxiety. Mm-hmm. Action kills anxiety. That back to your earlier point about the things that we can do and the actions that we can take. I think that's important. And I also think to, help out as colleagues, because there are times when we are the person who's seeing things with a brighter sense of optimism, that unreasonable optimism, like you say, Jabari. And then there's other times where we're the person who really needs to be, calmed down or regaining a new perspective.
Yeah. So as being there for each other as colleagues and being able to be brave or be courage for someone else, be their courage to be able to, whether it's to return to work, whether it's return to school, whether when you're sending your child out the door. One of the roles we play at school is while not everybody understands what it may look like, the fact is that we're optimistic that there's a plan in place, regardless of what level it is, what it's going to look like. But there is opportunity for us to do the work, for you in terms of being in the gap or being in a place of standing in the gap and being your courage in front of you, as well as when your child is at home and being able to work together to find out what's going to work the best. But those relationships matter. The communication is going to make a significant difference. There's a way to be authentic without being disagreeable, being able to communicate the concerns, but really being able to solve problems together as a community is going to make the difference. Any other questions? So just want to bring some context to this. One of the things that what you guys be aware of is that I'm away, and we're actually today have a bit of a storm. So I know Shannon went through some technical difficulties, and we're trying to manage this the best we can. So I thank you all for hanging in there with us, and we're doing our best, and we appreciate your patience.
I'm currently driving to try to find Wi-Fi somewhere. So thank you for carrying the ball, Jabari. But I think at this point I'm actually not getting feedback on the audio, which is great. So I can just join everybody this way. I want to encourage everybody to continue asking the questions and to tell us what's on your mind. But I've been hearing a lot from your fellow teachers, Jabari, and fellow administrators, and your board of directors, and your parents contingent. What are some of the fears and concerns you're hearing from these families and individuals?
Well, the first thing, if we hearing from families, it's just the idea of health and safety. What are the measures going into place for the school? Well, the first piece is, please know that your school district, whether it's in Pennsylvania, whether it's in whatever county or area you live in, each school district is taking into account all the information from the Center for Disease Control, CDC, or the local health department. They're taking the cues from all the information from medical experts to make a decision that is going to be best to the best of their ability. Remember, school boards and administration and principals and teachers, we're doing our best to make sure we follow clear guidelines. But again, it's going to be done with fidelity. It's going to be done, with bravery and taking a stance to move forward to the next step. So that's and that's just fact that those are the steps that we're taking on all, whether it's facilities and operations, whether it's food service, whether it's transportation, whether it's the administrative staff, secretarial staff, the business. Fear is obviously the social emotional well-being for families, whether their child is going to be able to build relationships at school, be able to maintain quite frankly, the innocence of their childhood is a concern. So we may hear that the fact that, but yeah, obviously childcare has always been a big issue. Even before these times, childcare can be an issue. But I think that families are, finding their best ways to deal with that, and schools are finding best ways about, what's feasible. There's often questions about what schools know about childcare, but most schools have, outside vendors who conduct their own child care on school grounds, school campuses, or within the community, very much like we do, and we just do our best to work with them. I think the families, obviously, those family members who are at risk for many things at home, for whether it's the health risk or the financial risk for the way things are structured. So some of those are things that are some of the fears. And then again, just the normal activities of, what should we do? When should we do it? How long is this going to last? Is just, the uncertainty that's there. So knowing that we're aware of these uncertainties, that these are things that are not fully answered, but we do know what we have in front of us, like what we're going to do from the teaching standpoint. What we hear often is, again, they're humans. They're trying to figure out how to balance things with their families and their kids, and also their own safety as well, and what's going to go in play for those families, as well as they try to return and do their job to the best of their ability. And then also, what is the classroom going to look like? What is this experience going to look like? They're so used to engaging, being is having the empathy and the contact and the experience with learners, that it's going to look different. So just really trying to build what the day is going to look like. It has been some anxious moments for teachers. And again, we're still developing, finding answers, finding ways to respond. Teachers want to know what's happening, if they are ill or if a child is ill. Again, we're following plans that are in play, through the advisement of a health department or the CDC guidelines, and putting those together and bringing in the experts to give feedback. And those are the factors. Those are the things that we have control over, following the protocols, ensuring that we're following the protocols as set forth, ensuring transparency as much as possible, listening. I know the families want to feel heard. They want to feel valued. They want to know if their child's going to be loved. They want to know if their child is going to still be celebrated, or are we just looking at the child as a number or a possible case. What's going to happen about the uncertainty if a child has to be if a child is excluded, or who's being quarantined, how many people have to be out. But again, there's going to be answers from a health department that really takes a look at the contact tracing. So they're setting it up. It's not it's not a guessing game. It's something that we have to, we're taking it seriously. And in each district, wherever you may be, is taking these actions seriously. And even the children who are online, if my child's online, are they going to be forgotten? Well, it's our duty as school districts, as school administrators, leaders, that we engage those families, that we're still make sure they're part of our community, that we create vehicles for communication, to hear from one another, and to continue improving for the benefit of everyone involved.
Those are great points, Jabari. Really helpful to just kind of go through those and understand what are some of the concerns that people have, and how is their child going to be treated, and also how are the faculty members and team members going to remain safe. And that's where I think that Healthy at Home does come in very nicely, to remember that when we get the opportunity to work and live and go to school at home, we are healthier in many cases.
Well, I heard the feedback about it was Jacob Walkoff. He has the Mind Body Green podcast, and he was talking about one of his episodes about there should be some kind of, actually Ben Bergeron I think was mentioning it as well in Chasing Excellence podcast, where he really was talking about how this is a time to have everyone get healthy initiative, how important it is that in these times we have the opportunity to be still and redevelop and enhance our health and maximize on our healthy habits and model those habits so that when these times come that we are in better condition. So if you're, say, for example, there's a level of in terms of when we're breathing our own tolerance for our CO2 and what is coming out of our mouth, what we're breathing back in. Are we healthy enough? Are we taking advantage of these times to create healthy habits? So this is an issue, this is an area or time for growth for all of us. Again, it goes back to how do we reframe it? How do we change the narrative moving forward and stay away from the woe is me and quite frankly, a lot of memes, a lot of the videos, they're funny. I have a great sense of humor, but at the same time, there's a lot of truth said in jest. So if it's those things are being transmitted or shared out, it really could have an impact on our community at large, and most importantly, the children that we're leading and loving every day.
Here's another question, Jabari. What's the best way to motivate our children during virtual learning so that they can set their own habit structure and what works for them?
So I recently posted, it was a Facebook post, and it's been working more at home. So as far as motivate, I think children really being able to have a voice in how they structure their day, and it's a great time to teach time management. Sometimes children, even I was an administrator from kindergarten through 12th grade, and there's always this panic about how much time they have in a day. The reality of it is, like with my own children, part of the motivation is once they realize how much time they had after they did so we started a marble jar for them. So they earned a certain number of marbles to be able to move on with their day, to get the things that they don't really feel like doing done. So they really didn't have access, and they've earned the remaining time. So it's kind of putting first things first, like Stephen Covey had mentioned in the Healthy Habits of Highly Effective Teens, being able to make sure you do what you got to do so you can do what you want to do. So once they may have that achievement, it may be rough at the beginning, but they realize that they actually have much more time and that we could be flexible with their time and that they could be productive. And you celebrate that and they acknowledge those feelings that they have, and they set the voice for what they want to, set up what they want to earn so they could have a buy-in, but maintaining a consistent schedule and not breaking the contract. So if you're at home with your children, what is the time of day that we're going to agree on that we're going to start? What is the time of day that we agree on that's going to be the amount of time for our recess or at lunch at home? What's going to be the time of day that we're going to end our day? What's going to be the time of day where there can be extra practice? What is the time of day? How much time are you committing to other extracurricular activities? All those play a part. But having whether your school sets up again, let's be clear, not every school has the infrastructure or a brand new building or all the money or revenue or resources in the world to be able to have the most broad bandwidth possible, have unlimited devices, be able to respond to every single issue that is there. Let's be clear about that. There is inequities in education. That's true. So let's since we know that, what do we do? So if your school is not having a synchronous day, regardless of what the belief is, because the belief and reality don't match up, it's ineffective to continue going down that path. If you then are able to take a look at how you start your day, have a schedule with your child at home and develop it. And I often hear my child won't listen to me. Well, again, no parent wants to defend their parenting, and unsolicited advice doesn't go that well. So what do you do? Find a model that works for you and your home with your family, and most importantly, you're going to hear from your child. It's very tough for a child to argue against themselves. When they created the parameters, if they can argue with themselves, but it's not that effective. It's sometimes having them repeat back to you what they just said, if that's really what they meant. Because remember, children, they're still working from that that fight or flight, the reptilian brain. And they're really still fighting, operating from that standpoint. They haven't gotten to a point of executive function and decision making. And I don't care how mature you think your child is, the executive function, that portion of the brain in adults doesn't really form until 25 to 27 years old. So if you understand brain science, I know Franklin Institute has done tons of work for brain science and sharing information. Julia Skolnick name rings a bell right now because we've had some great experience learning with the Franklin Institute, and all their resources. Sanjay Gupta is another prominent figure when it comes to brain science. We understand all the things that happen and the impact on the brain, and understanding that piece creates more awareness. And again, go back to learn, as much as you possibly can.
So we have a comment and then a question, Jabari. So one comment here from Michelle is that she says many of us may have different views on how schools should look upon reopening, and the CP team has done a remarkable job communicating with us throughout the process, and she wanted to express her gratitude.
Well, thank you. Hi, Nolan. So, yeah. So, and again, we're still trying to improve. We still have a lot to do. We still have so much feedback to gain. My district has done a great job of, we survey, and survey a little more. But in a good way, in the fact that we are communicating as much information as possible in a timely manner that we can. And again, there's always going to be differences of outlook or opinion, but we have to follow fact, guidelines, information that's credible to make the best decision. And sometimes, again, battleships turn slow. Our decisions don't often turn around as fast as people might like. But we, our best is our foundation for better, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
Right, that's great. So we've got my kids are learning some great life lessons during this time. It will make them better humans. They're learning the meaning of sacrifice, community, and compromise.
Mm-hmm. That is those pieces: sacrifice, community, and compromise. Life is a great teacher. I always, people who've known by now, I refer to life as free theater. Yeah, because it's a show that writes itself, and you just have to wait and expect to be in awe and in shock, and see what's in front of you. Some people joke with me and ask they didn't buy those tickets. They didn't buy all these tickets. So, but again, it goes back to the fact that yes, I have. We have two children, and they're they're very beautiful human beings. They're very fortunate, but they're not perfect. Neither am I. And the fact is, it's good to have them deal with disappointment. It's good to have them deal with boredom. If we run off and go try to do everything for them and plow down every hurdle, or like when a child doesn't get invited to the birthday party, I've explained to my children that look, not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to invite you to their birthday party. There's going to be those times. So what do? These are great times when you can learn to love yourself when you're by yourself. How do we model that? If it's one of those things, if we're teaching children not to continue to seek outward praise or external affirmation, even though it's helpful to have that positive influence. But being an administrator from K to 12, and also have been a coach of athletics, with our children, if they're looking for the approval of others as they go up through school and not learn to love themselves or see themselves to have a strong self-concept, and I'm talking about adults included, if your child's going to run up against a teacher someday, hopefully not in anywhere I've been part of, but they can run up against a teacher that's not a match, according to them. They might have a coach that's not, the greatest human being on the planet. However, for them, it's not something they can run away from. It's one of those things that you have to have a strong enough self concept and being willing to handle those disappointments and setbacks to be able to move forward beyond. And there's too many examples. If I think back to Malala, Malala was, if you're in Pakistan, you know the story where she, girls weren't allowed to learn, and her father would encourage her to learn, and she had the attempt in her life, and she's still fighting for the rights of children to learn, or women to learn, or ladies to learn in her country and across the world. So often keep those things, those stories in the forefront, and I think those pieces of sacrifice, compassion, community, it's amazing, because while we'll be fine in our own household and all four walls, it is really important to recognize that this place is so much bigger, and the more empathy that we can drive home with our children, and set a model of self-care, and set a model of healthy habits, and focus on what we can control, then that's going to set up a better foundation for all of us. And again, back to it, it's who we are for our children, our community.
That's right. That's so well said, Jabari. Thank you. So I have a question here from Carrie, who's saying, what about parents who aren't home to help? Mm-hmm. She's not that worried about her 7th grader, but she's concerned about her 4th grader son who'll be without supervision. What are your thoughts there?
So that's, again, that goes back, Carrie. Hi, Carrie. But that does go back to the idea of community. We face some situations where grandparents are left with children. We face situations where someone finds childcare that might not be solely aligned with their value system or how they would like things done. But the idea, as long as it's in a safe place, and you're setting up those expectations. So if a child is not home, maybe you're flipping the schedule. So while they're doing a day, sometimes if it's asynchronous instruction, where those lessons or pre-recorded lessons are left to be done. I know people say they go to work and they are tired. I grew up with a family where I had a father who worked at 2 separate hospitals. A mother worked a job full-time and a part-time job. And we lived in some areas that we had to have some significant guardianship, some safety. It was could be a very unsafe situation. But there was never a question about what the value was going to be in our home in terms of, getting your schoolwork done, making sure that that was going to be important, carrying the family values of being committed to a task, of taking care of the household chores, being there as an older sibling so I'm the oldest in my house as a child, and my sister was 5 years younger, my brother was 8 years younger, and then I had to be responsible for their behavior as the oldest child. Quite frankly, I wasn't always perfect. No, I definitely wasn't, but at the same time, I think that setting those values and setting up that schedule, say for example, if your child cannot handle doing what they need to do during the day, is it going to be more valuable, even as tired as you are, that if you came home and you decided, hey, because how critical, look, education saves lives. If you need support about how to do it at home, after school day or after you return from work, because we did have some children who were only able to do the work when a family member was home at the end of the workday. So it goes back, communicating with the teacher, communicating with the administrator, communicating with school counselor, to mitigate that particular task. And it's our job, if it's a district social worker, it's our job to find a way to be able to help or assist that family. I taught 4th grade as a teacher. I taught 4th grade and 2nd grade. So there are special years. 7th grade, that's the 12-year-old button. So that's a special year. All on its own. Then you hit 9th grade, which is they need their own planet. But at the same time, it really is about setting a structured schedule, because kids do want structure. They obviously thrive on the consistency, and many times school is usually the most consistent place. And remember, at home, the kids, they tug on mom and dad's emotions, or the family, the partner's emotions, or what that's going to look like. At home, they'll tug on those emotions because they know they're pulling your heartstrings. But we do a joint effort, teamwork at school, then we can work on both sides to make sure. So it's a collaborative effort between home and school, and that's what it was meant to be.
Yes, yeah, that's great. So she said, "Hey," and then thank you to you.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
And I would encourage
that.
I
think that too is about the community, right? Like, how do we all help each other? If you have a stay-at-home parent, or if you have a in-law, or however we can help each other out. Maybe if it's even an online, way of studying, a study group, a reading group, a homework group. What are creative ways that we could bond more as a community and support each other?
I mean, just think about it. I watch so much, and this is learning. So many ideas that I wish, great ideas should be passed on. The fact that you had these front lawn clubs, there during the day, there were teachers, or there were people or community members who met on people's front lawns with the most dependent learners who they knew needed help, they sat on the front lawn, mask, whatever, and they were able to provide some help or support, some guidance. You're able to have that distance. You're able to have that space, and judging by people in general, especially in Delco, people carry very loud voice of giving, so it's not a matter of that. But again, it's the availability. It's amazing our human capacity when we buy into something, when we really, really want to do something, we are truly able to find a way. So this is one of those times where we have to all, we have to find a way. Because there's no superhero coming. There's nobody coming to save us. It's we are the ones we've been waiting for. This is the time. And one of my colleagues, Mr. D, Joe DeBartolomeo, we were in a recent conversation, and he exuberantly expressed about the idea that this is the moment we've been waiting for. Is the moment. It's good to be tested. It's good to know where your values lie. One of the pastors that the church I went to growing up used to say, "Are you live? Are you Memorex?" For those of you who remember, cassette tapes. But
are you live, or what was it?
Or are you Memorex? Are you just some kind of recording or fake, something fake? Are you real? Or are these your values? And that's one thing I try to do as much as possible, that whether it's here today, whether you meet me in person, whether it's my Facebook page, Twitter, whatever, people will engage and understand you and being supportive of you if your values are consistent. And it's too difficult. It's difficult enough just being yourself. Trying to be someone else it's not going to get it done. So I think that being as authentic as possible, again, building that connection and building community. That neighbor. Sometimes we know families. There are families who want in neighborhoods. There's an idea about neighborhoods working together. Sometimes there's these unintended consequences that can happen if it falls into a place of a clique. If it falls into the smaller clubs, and it doesn't have a benefit of the large community. Again, I understand people can't be responsible for everybody to try to control what's within their parameters, but then there is the unintended consequences when we make those shifts based off of the pleasing a group versus serving a community.
Yeah, that's a great distinction. Serving a community, being a member of a community, contributing to a community, right? Finding ways to add value. And I love where you started with this, Jabari, where you talked about, I can get Wi-Fi for just one sec. Here we go. The 5 factors. Like, these are things that we can do something about. And I love how you came full circle about this too, because we could also really make it our business to be a contributing member of our community, our school community, our neighborhoods. And we have more to give when we invest in these 5 factors of sleep, nutrition, exercise, relationships, mindset. you've given us some really great things to think about here in terms of mindset, and then also that distinction between what we control and what we don't control, and that, you know, everything really in that circle of control is ourselves. So when we're thinking about, you know, who we surround ourselves with, what language choices we use, how we set up healthy habits for ourselves and our families, and then the point you just brought up about like how we're contributing and supporting one another. I think that that's great. And I also like what you said about you know, this is our time. This is a moment for us to shine.
Shannon, I'm glad you brought that point back up, and it just put a idea out there. The point about nutrition. Each year you think about around Thanksgiving, we always at the grocery store and we're looking for, you know, if you pay a little more or donate, you can buy a bag of groceries for someone. That's around Thanksgiving. The holiday time, whether Christmas, wherever holiday, there's always there's something at that time. Why do we wait to those times to become more charitable, or we wait to those times to serve when people need service every day? So I mentioned food deserts earlier. I mentioned, are people aware of how many children, even in our local communities, don't have access? Children, adults, senior citizens, how many people do not have access to fresh produce, to healthy? Because a lot of times the food desert people have. My wife used to be a researcher at CHOP, and she worked with Crohn's and colitis. And part of that is your diet. And in West Philadelphia, part of the issue was that there's food deserts. There wasn't these great grocery stores the way we have Giant and Acme. You know, where I grew up, we had the local convenience store that charged arm and a leg for, you know, a gallon of milk or cheese when it was about $2 less, you know, if you had to walk to Acme and Upland, or get a bus ride out to Pathmark and Brookhaven. So there's some inequities there. And since we know there's inequities lie, while we're looking for ways to serve, while we're looking for ways, somebody brought about teaching our children to sacrifice, maybe that's another vehicle. You know, maybe there's ways to make sure kids, you know, families, this is huge. Remember, there's these times where there was this grace period where families weren't having to pay their rent. There's grace periods where families were not able to take care. You know, they were given a reprieve, but that grace period is running out. So keep in mind that these people, you know, you've already may have seen there's evictions that are coming forth for people who are less fortunate. How can you step in the gap for that if you're able? And many of us, especially where I'm at, are along the lines of the West Philadelphia area, or you may be a part of an urban community. And make no mistake, in the own suburban areas, there are many hidden problems. I had the fortune of, as hot as it was, I used to do, and Ridley, as administrator, did a great idea. The most eye-opening piece I've ever been a part of was doing a welcome walk. And talk about gratitude when you're walking up to homes and realize there could be 4 or 5 people living in a 1-bedroom place over top of somebody's garage, and we're a bunch of cats and mental health, but at the same time, they're supposed to care about school, you know, and be able to survive. So so let's take this opportunity. Let's take this opportunity to grow. Because I must admit, Shannon, and we were talking about earlier, that in these times, it's these times that has caused me to want to engage and help and help connect. And I'm really hoping today that that these words to these times are of service to the audience. Because again, we're all on this journey together. I'm a patchwork of different things I've learned, and the best thing to do is we have a duty, responsibility to continue to share, continue to grow, and continue to carry conversations forward.
Agreed. Thank you so much, Jabari, for hanging in there while combing the seashore of Delaware. This will teach me to schedule events on my vacation. But thank you for being truly a model of resilience and perseverance. And I think it's a lot of your healthy habits that have enabled you to stay so calm and steady in this conversation, and also to offer us food for thought. And I love that our closing comment is about service and giving, because that joy is from giving.
Yes.
joy is from making contributions to others. So if we're feeling anxious and wrapped up and nervous and fearful and all of those things, which we're entitled to feel,
yes,
a way out is service.
Yeah, if there's never been if there's ever example of being brave, not perfect, like Brene Brown says, today was it.
Yeah, that's right.
We made it work.
Be well, everybody. Have a great school year.
Hey, thanks for your time, Shannon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jabari.
Bye-bye.
We're better together, as always.
As always.
Be well.
You.